Hello folks. In this video I'm going to be taking a look at the Blue Yeti microphone. Now the Yeti really doesn't need much of an introduction, and that's why I'm not really reviewing it today. It's been one of the most popular microphones for YouTube and for streaming for years, but I just wanted to talk about it as a USB microphone, what that actually means, and what some other alternatives could be to this. Also maybe a little bit about why this is so popular and if it should still be as popular as it is, given all the other options that are out there these days. So for starters, I will just give just a couple of quick thoughts about the microphone. As far as sound quality, you're listening to it right now. But in terms of the microphone itself, the form factor, the build quality, I'm not super impressed. I do kind of wish this stand was height adjustable. Also, the knobs are very stiff. They're kind of hard to turn. They're kind of rough. So not really blown away by the build quality, but at the same time, it's fine. It does what it needs to do. Now this is what pretty much everybody would call a USB microphone because it plugs directly into the computer via USB. And quite often that is one of the things that gets attributed to it as the reason for it not having as good a quality as maybe some higher end microphones. But ultimately, unless you're plugging a microphone directly into the microphone jack of your computer, which is generally the lowest quality option out there, then you're probably ultimately connecting whatever setup you have to your computer with a USB cable. So while an XLR cable connects the microphone to an interface, in that case, the audio interface would connect to the computer with a USB cable. In the case of the Yeti, the microphone is connected directly to a USB interface that is actually built into the Blue Yeti, and then that interface gets connected to the computer with a USB cable. So ultimately, it's really the same thing. It's just that the Blue Yeti has an audio interface built into it versus having a separate audio interface with a microphone connected to it. So I would say that any difference in audio quality that you're going to get between a microphone that someone would call a USB microphone and, say, an XLR microphone is just the fact that you might pay $100 or $200 or even $400 or $500 for an XLR microphone and then still have to connect it to an audio interface that might also cost $100, $200, $300, $400, $500. So the total cost of the setup is substantially more, whereas with the Blue Yeti, you're paying about $100, $120 for an all-in-one setup. And so, it's just a cost to performance ratio difference. If I were to say that my Rode NT1 plugged into my audio interface sounds better than the Blue Yeti, that really wouldn't be surprising because the Rode NT1 alone costs about twice as much as the Yeti. And with that microphone, you still need an audio interface. So really, I think any difference in sound quality is going to come down to that, just the fact that this is an all-in-one setup for about $100 to $120, whereas the other setups can cost quite a bit more than that. And I think that's also why this is quite a popular microphone, because it is an all-in-one setup. If someone's wanting to get started recording audio for YouTube or doing, game streaming or something like that, or just, recording your first podcast, you can buy this microphone, plug it into your computer, and you're recording audio. It's got a built-in stand. You just set it on your desk and you're good to go. In my opinion, the main downside to a setup like this, of a USB microphone, which really is just a microphone that has a built-in audio interface, the main downside is just the fact that if you did want to upgrade the microphone later, if you wanted to upgrade the interface later, or if either of those things has a problem, you're getting rid of the whole thing. It's an all-in-one. There's no modularity to it. But again, considering this is less expensive than some microphones by themselves, I still see why it's the setup that a lot of people choose to start with. But given how many options we do have out there these days, I wanted to see if I could find a complete setup with a separate audio interface, separate microphone, cable, everything you need to hook it up so that it's as complete of a package as the Yeti for the same price as the Yeti, and see if I could get any better quality out of it. So real quickly, I'll go over the setup that I came up with that is about the same cost as the Yeti, and then we'll do some comparisons and see if there's any difference in audio quality between the two. For starters, I got the Behringer UM2 interface. This is pretty much the cheapest audio interface on the market, but this will take the place of the audio interface that is essentially built into the Blue Yeti so that I can connect a microphone to my computer. I picked up this MXL 440 large diaphragm condenser microphone. This is a cardioid polar pattern microphone. It does not have the multiple patterns that the Yeti has, but in my opinion, the vast majority of the recordings that are being made with the Blue Yeti either are or should be using the cardioid pattern anyway. So I went ahead and got a cardioid microphone. I got an XLR cable to connect the microphone to the interface, and this is actually a pretty high quality cable. It's got name brand Neutrik connectors on it, and the connections are nice. The cable is good quality cable. I got a small adjustable height desktop microphone stand. I got this pop filter on a little adjustable arm. And finally, I even got a set of cheap monitoring headphones. Very cheap, actually. The build quality on these is pretty poor. Very low quality, but I haven't tried them yet. Maybe they work just fine. And honestly, you could leave these out since the Blue Yeti doesn't actually come with headphones. Now, the Yeti doesn't actually come with an external pop filter either, but I believe it does have a little bit of foam inside this grill to help eliminate plosives. So I wanted to go ahead and get a pop filter for the other microphone, and I was still able to get the setup for about the same cost as the Blue Yeti. So, like I said, I was able to get all of those components for around the same cost as the Blue Yeti. So while it's no surprise that you can spend a lot more money and get better quality than the Blue Yeti, let's see if for the same cost you can get a better sounding setup with all separate components. So up to this point, you've been hearing the Blue Yeti microphone. I'm going to go ahead and get the other setup going, and we'll see how that one sounds. Okay, so now I'm recording with the complete XLR setup that I purchased for about the same price as the Yeti. And in case you're wondering, I didn't get this stuff off eBay or, AliExpress or some place direct from China like that. I got this all from a major retailer that I buy a lot of equipment from. As I said before, this is the MXL 440 large diaphragm condenser microphone and the Behringer u-phoria UM2 audio interface. Now, this is just about the cheapest audio interface I could get, but there are cheaper microphones. There's probably slightly cheaper mic stands and pop filters and that kind of thing if you were to go, like I said, to eBay or maybe even Amazon and actually come in slightly under the cost of the Yeti at this point. Especially if you just leave out the pop filter or even the headphones, which I would recommend leaving out the headphones. These aren't great. But this is a full setup with a separate audio interface and microphone connected via an XLR cable. So it is possible to get a setup like this for the same price as the Yeti. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean the Yeti is a bad option. It is a little bit simpler of an option. And, depending on what we find from listening to the sound of the different setups, maybe you'll even prefer the sound from it. But this is a little bit more of a modular setup. So, you could replace individual components as you wanted to or needed to if something failed. But also, I just wanted to kind of show the difference in the two setups, because ultimately a USB microphone isn't inherently bad because it's a USB microphone. It's just a microphone with a built-in USB interface. So I would say if there's a difference in quality, it's just due to cost, and I wanted to see if we could match that quality for the same cost with individual components. So what do you think? How does it sound? Do you think it sounds as good as the Yeti? Honestly, I won't know until I do a little bit of playback and check for myself, because I'm currently monitoring with those cheap headphones that I bought, and they really don't sound good at all. Now, to see if there's any difference in the noise floor between the two setups, I'll give you a little bit of silence from each. In both of these moments of silence from each setup, I will leave the gain on the interface of the Behringer and the gain on the Blue Yeti, both set to where I had them set to record decent levels that you're hearing in these recordings. And I will just boost each one in post by the same amount to make the noise floor a little bit more audible, and hopefully you'll be able to tell the difference between the two if there is one. So there you go. There's a little bit of a listen to the two different setups. I know the Blue Yeti gets a lot of love because a lot of people use it and are super happy with it, and that's great. If you're using it and you like it, that's awesome. But it also gets some criticism. A lot of people have, higher end setups that they greatly prefer, and I understand that too. But I also see that it gets some criticism simply for being a USB microphone. They say it sounds more digital or more artificial because it's a USB microphone. And, if the microphone does have flaws that allow digital noise or interference or something like that to get into the signal, then that's a design flaw, and, it's a fair criticism, but it's not because it's a USB microphone. It's just because, it should have had better shielding or, better circuit design or something like that. Because, every interface that I've used, even if it was connected to an XLR microphone, it's still a USB interface, plugs into the computer with USB. There's still analog to digital conversion going on. And all the microphone capsules themselves are analog devices, so it's all pretty much the same thing. It's just how it's set up. And one last test, since I think that modularity is the greatest inherent advantage to having a separate setup here with a separate interface and microphone, I went ahead and connected a far more expensive microphone to the Behringer UM2 interface, just to show you that even if you start out with a very inexpensive interface like this, down the road you could upgrade the microphone and get a better or at least a very different sound if you want just a microphone that has different characteristics. Maybe down the line you want to do something different for a video and you want to use a shotgun microphone or something like that. When you have a separate audio interface, you can connect a different microphone to it and have a completely different recording setup. And I just wanted to show that even though the Behringer UM2 is virtually the least expensive interface on the market, you can still get decent results with a good microphone. So I'm going to give you another moment of silence here with the Blue Yeti LCT 440 Pure microphone connected to the Behringer interface, and see how that compares to the other two. So there you go, just a quick comparison with a different microphone. In this case, like I said, the Blue Yeti LCT 440 Pure connected to the Behringer interface. So now I'm back to recording with the Blue Yeti. So I understand why this microphone is so popular. It's an all-in-one setup and it's a known quantity. And by that I just mean that there's so many reviews out there of it and there's so many people using it that people have a pretty good idea of what to expect. They know that they can get one of these and the audio is going to be good enough as it is for lots of people. But I also just wanted to show that even at this price range, it is technically possible to get a separate audio interface and microphone setup. And for some people, that extra modularity may be worth the hassle of having, 2 or 3 components versus having just the Yeti. And ultimately, the sound quality is what it is. You can get a certain amount of sound quality out of the Blue Yeti. You can get a certain amount of sound quality out of other setups. It's not the fact that the Yeti is a USB microphone that inherently makes the sound quality any better or worse than anything else. Because even an XLR microphone is just a microphone with an XLR connector that plugs into an audio interface that then goes to USB anyways. So anyway, hopefully some of that was interesting or helpful. If you have any questions or if there's anything else you want me to test with the Yeti or with any of these other setups or any other comparisons you want me to do, just let me know in the comments below. As always, thank you for watching. Take care.